channel. If you're new, my name is Landry, and I started a new series on my channel where each and every week I talk all things Best Medicine, as both a Best Medicine fan and a Doc Martin fan's perspective. If you're not familiar with what Best Medicine is, it is a new American adaptation / spinoff that Fox brought to us that is based off of the beloved British TV series Doc Martin, which was on the air for 18 years and sadly came to an end in 2022. I did not come across Doc Martin until 2024, but immediately became a huge fan and have watched the series through 3 times and counting. So when I found out there was going to be an American adaptation of the beloved show, I was excited, and once I started watching, I decided each and every week I wanted to create a series on my channel where we talk all things about the show and my thoughts about it, my perspective, and I'd add at the end of each and every episode a little bit of Doc Martin knowledge if you're a fan like I am. But yeah, welcome if you're new. This is sadly the finale of my little series for season 1 because the final episode was last night. I'm a little sad about that. It feels like it's came to an end very quickly, and I'm not sad. I'm sad that we're not going to get to see any more Portwind for the time being, but thank goodness they came and got renewed for a season 2, which is amazing, which I'm super excited about that. So good news is I'm not going nowhere. The second season 2 drops, I will be starting this series back up again. But yeah, I did want to say before we get into this video how much I appreciate all the love and support watching these videos each and every week. I started this series on my channel because I have a passion for this show. This show means the world to me because I can relate to it in so many different ways. I've shared in previous reaction videos how each and every event seems to point towards something that my small town does in its own way. For example, the Blueberry Festival reminds me of our annual Blackberry Festival. And then there was the Baked Bean Supper reminded me of a barbecue supper that my church used to put on monthly. So this show I can relate to in so many different ways, and I just appreciate being able to connect with a TV show because there's not that many TV shows out there anymore that can make you feel the way I do about Best Medicine. And the whole reason I wanted to make this series on my channel reacting to it is just because of how much I can relate to it, and I just thoroughly enjoy watching it every single week. Whether I watch it once, I watch it 2 times basically every single week, each episode, and sometimes even more. And not because I have to make these videos, just because I want to, and I enjoy watching the episodes just as much as I did the first time. And so I just wanted to come on here and just say thank you so much for watching these videos. I hope you enjoy watching my reaction videos as much as I do making them, because it's just something that I look forward to doing each and every week, connecting with fellow fans of the show, whether you be a fan of Best Medicine only, or if you're a fan of the beloved British TV series Doc Martin that I came across in 2024 as a late fan. But hey, you gotta find an incredible show sometime, and I'm so glad I came across that show as well. And so if you're a fellow Doc Martin fan like myself, hope you enjoy these reaction videos as well. But yeah, let's dive into this video. I do want to give a disclaimer. If you've not seen Best Medicine at all, I would not watch this video until watching, because I give a lot of spoilers. We dive really deep into these episodes, and this is the finale. I do want to say also, if you have been watching my reaction videos but are not caught up, I have a playlist on my channel where I have put episodes 1 through 12 on it, and we'll add 13. And there's bonus episodes where I did a deep dive of predictions for the mid-season. When we were on a break and didn't have an episode, I sat down with you guys and gave my predictions for what I thought would happen at the end of these episodes. Of the remainder of the season. I do want to say in this video, not only are we going to do a reaction to what happened in this final episode, but I'm also going to give my predictions of what I think will happen in season 2 moving forward, and I will also dive into the things that I may have gotten right in my prediction video and not quite right. So with that being said, let's dive into Best Medicine Season 1, Episode 13, Norway Know How. So, backing up, because this was a continuation of last week's episode, the key thing for this whole episode was the Norwegians coming to town because we thought we were getting a sister city. Portland had this idea that they were getting a sister city with Norway. They signed a contract, well, Geneva did rather, and turns out Glendon tricked Geneva into signing for a salmon farm being built or had in the bays of Portland, or the bogs in Portland. And the townspeople were not happy about that whatsoever. They're mad at Glendon. Dr. Best Martin always had assumed that there was something up with the Norwegians, but just could never get anybody to listen or see what he was seeing. Everybody was telling him that he needs to quit seeing the negative side to things and was asking him why he's never positive, telling him basically to change. So we have that going on. Martin, Dr. Best, sent Louisa to a specialist, a fertility specialist, because she wants to have a baby. And it turns out that Martin sent her to his ex-girlfriend, Dr. Montgomery, which he did not disclose to Louisa. So when she got there and was hearing all of these things about Martin's past and finding out that he in fact dated Dr. Montgomery, I think Louisa was a little bit in shock. And maybe a little bit jealous, maybe? I don't know. And I think that's pretty much all the things that we need to cover that would dive into this episode. So, starting off this episode, we are in a town meeting, and the whole town is upset, basically shouting out opinions, which is totally understandable because they have just been tricked by Glendon and are basically losing their beautiful scenic town to these Norwegians that are wanting to put a salmon farm in their bog. And, you have Sheriff Mark kind of trying to calm the town down, but let's be honest, he's not really doing a good job, which are you surprised by now? Knowing his character, he's telling everybody that they need to use their inside voices because that is not what their town is. They are nice people and listen to guests, but everybody is upset. You have George looking into the potential negatives of having the farm come to their town, and he shares that. You have Greg concerned about what it will do to the scenery of the town, that having a salmon farm may cause them to have less tourists because it will destroy their scenery. Aunt Sarah brings up the point about, well, if they have that it will destroy the careers of the lobster fishermen. The fishermen will no longer be able to catch their living the way they make a living. And then the teenagers didn't really seem concerned at first. The teenagers wanted to leave, said they don't understand what the big deal is, why are they even there. But later, as they were hearing people talk, I think they started to realize, hey, this is a huge problem, and we could, if we listen, there might be things that we can do to help stop this from happening. So that was good for once that the teenagers were actually listening. On the other side, you have Geneva beating herself up over it, telling Louisa that she should never sign the contract, and Louisa was trying to calm her down. But on the other side of it, you have Martin, Dr. Best, being his usual self, telling her that yes, there was a way to prevent it. If they would have read the fine print on the contract before signing, you never sign something before reading it, that they wouldn't be in that mess. And Louisa's like, hey, that's not the time and place to say anything. And then everybody is booing Glendon because nobody wants to hear what he says because he basically neglected the town. And his side of things is that he basically believes that somebody had to do something because Portland is in huge trouble financially. They're losing the school. Nobody is able to make as much money as they used to. And he feels that he made a huge success for Portland by signing this business deal to get them back on track of where they need to be. But nobody else seems to see it that way. So when they had the Norwegians starting to talk about it, explaining, Sigrid, the woman, was talking about basically how this is going to benefit them, and then immediately breaks out in song because her water breaks and she is immediately having a baby. And I kind of cracked up because the first thing that Sheriff Mark says to Martin is, "Have you ever delivered a baby before?" And I just thought that was funny, and I'm thinking, well, if he hasn't, he can say, I have now, because it's coming, he's going to have to deliver the baby. So, we immediately cut to her in labor, and Martin is basically asking people to help him prepare for the baby, because it is coming. There is no getting her to the hospital. He's going to have to deliver it right there in the town hall meeting. So he asked Aunt Sarah to get blankets. He asked, everybody's pitching in. It's a team effort. Elaine is getting the towels. Sheriff Mark is getting the scissors. Louisa's assisting him. And immediately Elaine gets in panic and is like pulling Louisa aside and asking her. He does realize there's going to be a lot of blood, right? Like, she's doing it discreetly because she doesn't know that Louisa knows that he has a blood phobia. She thinks she's the only one that knows, and she's really worried about him, which is, I think Elaine has grown in a character so much in this season, because at the beginning of the season she was annoying and all she cared about was herself and her success, but now we gradually see that ever since she was entrusted with the doc's secret of him having a blood phobia, she is showing more care and compassion for him, I think. He was a good father figure for her. They shared a lot of personal things with one another. And I think she's finally getting to that point where she's kind of helpful to him. So with the fact of her discreetly talking about it to Louisa and not bringing it up to the whole town. And of course Louisa already knew about it, and Elaine's kind of upset that Louisa didn't tell her that she knows. And they're both like, it's not the time or place, come on. So immediately it gets concerning because the first thing Dr. Bess Martin asks Louisa is there a lot of blood? Because, this blood phobia is getting out of hand. He's not making any progress. And thankfully, she says, no, not that much. So immediately he begins to help Sigrid give birth. And the first thing that happens that he notices is that the baby is extremely hairy. Like, more hairy than it should be. And, he's trying to be Dr. Best being Dr. Best, explaining to her what's going on. And Aunt Sarah just immediately cuts him off and she says, I think what he is trying to say is, you have one hairy baby. Which I thought that was so funny. And, you have the whole town watching them give birth. And, Greg is like, I'm no expert, but is the baby supposed to look like that? The teenagers are like, this is disgusting. Everybody is just like there watching this. And then, of course, Sheriff Mark being Sheriff Mark, the goofy character he is, he says, when Martin hands him the baby, he says, this little Chewbacca is so cute. And I just think, like, that is so funny, that everybody's making a big deal about this little baby that is hairy. Now, we did not get to see the baby, what it looked like. I'm curious to see if it actually was very hairy. I mean, it sounds like that it has a medical condition, and that Dr. Best was concerned and wanted them to immediately go to the hospital, but Sigrid declined and said that once she has a baby, she does not go to the hospital, she moves on. So there's that, and she also told Martin that when he gets concerned because she's telling her husband, Ludwig, that she has a headache, he needs to stop bothering her. Immediately, Dr. Best gets concerned and thinks there's something seriously going on, that she shouldn't be having a headache, and wants to examine them, but of course she says, no, not happening, and this does not stop the contract for us in the salmon farm, don't think that you can stop us. So, you have that going on. We cut to Dr. Best Martin in his doctor's office, looking at his computer, trying to find underlying health conditions that may be causing the hairy baby and the symptoms Sigrid is showing. And of course, Elaine comes in and tells him he has a full waiting room, and when he tells her that he is looking for underlying conditions, she immediately tells him that she doesn't think that they deserve that kind of attention. Which I find kind of shocking in a way, because I was thinking about this. It's not just Elaine in this episode that tells him that they don't deserve medical treatment, that they should be overlooked. Most of the town is telling Martin this. And it just comes to show, I'm just shaking my head, because I was thinking about earlier episodes of this season. For example, Blaze Day. Whenever Blaze, the wilderness instructor, goes missing from the doctor's office, he just wanders out, and Dr. Best is looking for a contact for him to call him immediately because he has a serious heart condition going on. And Elaine says he doesn't have a phone or email or anything. He just comes out of the woods annually for the Blaze Day event. You know, Martin was like, okay, well, he can just die in the woods then, since that's where he came from. And, you know, Elaine's like, whoa, that's not what you signed up for. What happened to treating every patient? And she, like, literally has a lecture with him telling him that he can't leave that patient behind. And then the women of the town come together and end up helping him find Blaze, searching for him. And then you have the whole thing about the blackout. You know, the guy that, the power guy, and they wanted Martin to go talk to him. And he ends up making things worse because he tells him to take his medicine, but doesn't, like, give him loving, like, compassion that he needed, the support he needed, and he ends up turning the power off, and the town comes running to him and is upset with him because he made the power guy mad, and he turned the power grid off. And they told him that he needs to go make things right. He needs to show love and compassion and support to his patient. So the fact that they were preaching that early in the season about that, and now in this last episode telling him that basically he needs to be on their side and don't treat these people that need his help, just blew my mind. And I'm thinking, it can't be both ways. So I was just thinking about that. So we have that going on, and, you know, he just tells Elaine that he has an oath. He has to, there's something wrong with her and the baby, and he needs to figure that out. So he ends up going to look for her, to talk to her. Meanwhile, Elaine's in the waiting room, and all the patients are asking her if she's got the call back. Super excited. They're like, you're going to Juilliard, right? We can't wait to see all that you accomplish. And, you know, she's just going along with it. And then it cuts to her reading an email saying that, unfortunately, Juilliard is not going to give her a call back. She will not be going to New York to do an in-person audition, that she did not get accepted. Which, you could tell she was pretty disappointed, and the fact that she feels like she needs to lie to the townspeople is pretty sad. And I'm just curious to see what the future holds for Elaine, since she does not get to go to drama school. I'm thinking, will she re-audition maybe? Or will she do something productive in the medical field that needs to be done, where she can be better help to Dr. Best? We will see. The teens really did take things to heart, listening to the whole debate in the town hall, because they immediately are outside of the Salty Breeze protesting. And quickly George and Greg come out, and they're like asking them, what on earth are they doing? And they're like, we're protesting. We knew that you had Sigrid and Ludwig in staying here, and that's not okay. We have a voice, and we want to share our thoughts with them. And immediately Greg and George is telling them that they're weak, that their signs are pathetic. Even Greg tells them that I've seen yard sales more convincing, and tells them basically that if they want to protest, they need more people, they need more signs convincing them to make a change, pretty much. And basically tells them to leave until they have a bigger, successful protest party, pretty much. And so that was interesting because the teenagers didn't understand, and Greg and George was like, oh, have we ever protested before? We've done it many a times and successfully. So it's interesting that the teenagers are taking interest into this, but I guess it all makes sense considering it's their town that they live in at stake. So immediately Dr. Best goes to the Salty Breeze to talk to Sigrid, but she is not there. So he ends up talking to her husband, Ludwig, trying to figure out where her and the baby are. Ludwig doesn't seem too concerned. He tells the doc that she may be scary, but once you get to know her and she gets her way, she's not that bad. And I just cracked up because the doc's like, well, that sounds like a very unsuccessful marriage. Martin being Martin. And, he's telling Ludwig that he really needs to see her, that there could be concerns. And, basically Ludwig's like, I don't really, want to upset her. We gotta leave her alone, pretty much. That, everything is okay. So he just kind of gets mad at, or upset with Ludwig, and it's like, fine. He says, fine. I'll talk to your 5-foot Viking queen myself. Pretty much he's like, well, nobody seems to want to care about her health as much as I do, so if I have to, I'll go talk to her myself, pretty much. And also you have Greg and George asking Martin the question before he leaves if he knows any big successful lawyer in Boston that could help them get on this case of the contract that is very misleading. Wants to know if they have a chance to fight, and Martin's response is, well, it wouldn't matter because you signed a contract that you didn't read, and that it just wouldn't be a case that could be won right away, that basically it was too late. He didn't seem like he was going to offer any help for that. His main concern was the baby and the mom, which even Greg and George was upset about, saying that they can't believe that he would help two people that betrayed the town, pretty much. And Martin's like, well, I'm a doctor, that's what I do. I don't take sides. But nobody seems to understand. Also, they're talking about how there is a weird smell coming from the mom. And Dr. Best is intrigued by this and immediately wants to go see the placenta that they had to keep in the fridge, which is very disgusting. And it turns out that there's a bad smell of rotten eggs, which leads into bigger concerns that there may be an infection going on. So Aunt Sarah is in the bait and tackle shop, and you have Sigrid trying to tell people how successful it will be once the salmon farm comes to Portland. And Aunt Sarah is not happy with her. She tells her like it is. That's what I love about Aunt Sarah's character. She doesn't hold back. She speaks what's on her mind. And Sigrid is like even brought up trying to pressure Aunt Sarah, saying, hey, I know your house is up for sale. You're going to lose your house. How about I'll buy it for you and put your name on it so you'll never lose your house again. All you gotta do is convince the town that this is a good business offer, and everybody will be happy. And Aunt Sarah just puts her foot down and says, not doing it. That you think I would fall for this? You got another one coming to you. That she would rather live in the bait and tackle shop than she would helping a backstabbing Norwegian falsely coming to the town, pretty much. And Sigrid's like, I never. And she says, in Norway us Norwegians say it means this. And I can't remember exactly what she said. And Aunt Sarah, well, in America it means you keep one eye open. So Aunt Sarah's not having it whatsoever. She is not falling for the pressure of being bought, so to speak. And Dr. Best is immediately going after finding that she's at the bait and tackle shop, and Aunt Sarah stops him and asks him why he is not doing anything to save the town. All he's been caring about is Sigrid and her baby since the whole beginning. And, he says that, well, it's my patient, and I couldn't, if I don't do something about it, I wouldn't live with myself if something happens to them. And, Aunt Sarah's like, well, you need to quit picking sides. You need to start picking the right side. And, he says something that really strikes me. Martin says, well, sorry, there's no sides to medicine. Basically saying that he's not on any side. He may not agree with what Sigrid is doing, but he has a Hippocratic oath that he must take care of anybody that needs his help, and that's what he's going to follow. And Aunt Sarah immediately says, well, there are sides in Port Wynne. That it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor or not. In Port Wynne, you are expected to stick together. So that is a big conflict for Dr. Bess Martin, but I don't think it's any bigger than what he's been dealing with this whole entire season. We later cut to him, examining Sigrid and the baby and asking her questions, because he's really concerned about her. Her blood pressure's a little high. He says that she smells like rotten eggs as well. She finds it a little freaky and is upset that he would be smelling her and telling him that he's very creepy. He needs to stop being weird. And, he just basically tells her like it is. He's like, I don't agree with anything you're doing for this town, but your health comes first, so I'm trying to help you, and I really think that there is something wrong with you and your baby. And even at the end, the baby starts grunting weirdly, and that's another red flag. He immediately puts his foot down. He's like, you either need to go to the hospital to get checked out because there's something really wrong, you could have an infection, or you need to come see me. And she finally agrees to see him the next day. And then she also asks him if he's going to be at the town meeting. And he says something that is very Dr. Bestie. He says, if that's even a term, he tells her no, he's not coming to the town hall. He finds her tactics very appalling. Being her physician or not, he does not agree with what she is doing. So he clearly puts his foot down and is like basically saying, hey, I may have to treat you and your baby, but don't think that I agree with anything that you're saying you're doing to the town. This is not right. So we had that going on. Back at the doctor's office, you have Al and Elaine just having a conversation, and Bert storms in. And basically Bert has been going through Al's room and finds that there are several college acceptance letters from New York City that have accepted his offer to go to each school. Bert's very upset with Al because he hasn't told him, and it doesn't sound like he's told Elaine. It doesn't sound like he's told Elaine either. And Elaine is all confused because she has no clue what's going on. And Al's like, stop, this is not how I wanted to tell her. Long story short, it turns out that Al had applied to several colleges in New York City because he wanted to be close to Elaine since she wanted to go to Juilliard, which I think is super sweet. And, Elaine's like, wait, you did this all just for me? And, Al being Al, I think it was just so sweet. He's like, no, not exactly. It's just coincidental. And then he's finally like, yes, I did this because I want to be close to you. And I just think that's super sweet because it shows that Al really does care for Elaine, and I think that their relationship is going to get better and better. Bert is just super upset with him that he would not tell him because this is a huge step and is life-changing for the both of them. And Al basically is like, well, I'm not the only one hiding things, and basically just blurts out to Bert why is it okay to keep secrets because you've kept the biggest secret of all? Are you really my father? And with that note, Bert storms out. Elaine is so confused, and Al kind of explains to Elaine how he found out that his father is not his father because of the Bogman DNA test that he took, and that he's been holding that on his chest for quite some time. Didn't know how to bring it up. Elaine doesn't seem like she knows how to react to it. She's kind of trying to bring comfort to him, but at the same time, when Al says that he does not love to be lied to, that being lied to is the worst thing of all. She kind of is reluctant because she's lying to him about not getting into Juilliard. And so that's a huge problem because, Al is basically saying honesty is the best policy for him, that he'd rather be told the truth to than being lied to all the time. So Elaine better be telling him, because their relationship could be in jeopardy if she doesn't tell him the truth. Meanwhile, at the Salty Breeze, you have Greg, George, and Louisa trying to figure out if there is a loophole to this contract that they have unfortunately signed, and is there a way for them to get out of it. Louisa's been doing a lot of research, and one thing that I found funny in the conversation is Louisa said, "The best idea pitched so far is Geneva faking her own death so we can use the life insurance to buy out the Norwegians." And what Greg says afterwards is the icing on the cake. He says, "Insurance fraud. That's easy to do." And I immediately was like, okay, Greg, what you been doing in the past? And, George immediately, "Please don't say any more, Greg." So I'm like, Greg, perfect. I just love Greg's character, and his response was just priceless. That was just so funny. And immediately Aunt Sarah comes in, and, they were talking about how Louisa brings up that Aunt Sarah's birthday is coming up on that Sunday, and asks Greg and George, is it inappropriate to be planning a party with all of this going on, the potential of losing the town scenery because of this contract? And, immediately Greg and George is like, no, we need to do something positive. They were on board for having this surprise party. So Aunt Sarah walks in, and they immediately have to pretend they're not talking about having a surprise party, and she asks them what they're chattering about. And Greg immediately says, insurance fraud. And the fact Aunt Sarah says, which makes it even better, says, "I told Geneva that was a bad idea." It's like everybody is thinking, what is it with this town? Everybody thinks that faking it on their somebody's death is the best solution for this contract issue. It was just so funny. And they immediately bring up, "So, what's your plans for your birthday, Sarah?" And she says that having a bingo party would be fantastic. And they're like, "A bingo party?" And Aunt Sarah's like, "Well, when you've had as many birthdays as I have, bingo is the best and fun option." So they're going to have a surprise party that she doesn't know about. You immediately hear, as they're having their conversation, the teens protesting once again. They've got a bigger team of teens. They got bigger and better signs. They have their own chant. And, Greg and George is very happy for them and very proud of them. But then they said, well, we're going to have to call the cops on you now. Call the sheriff on you now because you're being disorderly. And immediately the teens are like, wait, what? The teens are so confused because they basically egged them on to be doing this big protest, and now they're getting the sheriff called on them. And it turns out Greg and George says, well, it wouldn't be your first offense if you didn't get arrested next. So they're basically trying to teach them a lesson, I guess. But, I don't get it because nobody's really taking it seriously. We'll get into that in a minute. We later cut to, while all of this is going on with the teenagers, you cut to Dr. Best's office. Martin is walking into his office, and immediately Elaine is giving him the look of, there's somebody here without saying a word, and who is it? It's Glendon. I've said this whole entire season that we've talked about Glendon. I do not like Glendon. He is rude, he's mean, he's a snake. I just can't stand the side of him. I can't stand what he said to Martin. Calling him Eeyore, and it sounds like he bullied him when his childhood when he was staying there in the summer, and the fact that he went and threatened him later on when he was helping his son, Glendon Jr., with his injury. I just can't stand Glendon. So basically Glendon blackmails Dr. Best because he tells him that he saw that he was having a little bit of issues with the baby delivery, he turned pale, and that he did some calling, and if I found out that a certain receptionist named Elaine was doing the blood work for Dr. Best, and that she was doing it without a license or certificate, and that is a big, 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 big no-no, and that he would be glad to call and complain to the board to have Martin's medical license revoked if he didn't overlook the foreseen contract of the salmon farm. If he can convince the town that the salmon farm is the best solution, all of the unnecessary and unlawful blood drawing of Elaine's work would be wiped away and Glendon wouldn't bring it up. Martin is not happy, and I'm a little surprised that we didn't get to the bottom of this, the whole beginning, because if you remember in episode 3, the baseball episode, when Glendon Jr. gets injured, Glendon blames Martin, ends up suing him, puts a restraining order against him, even threatens him, telling him that he has talked to people in Boston, knows why he left Boston. Right there was a red flag that Glendon doesn't mess around, and if I was the doc, I would have either told about my blood phobia, came clean to the town, which he did to Louisa and Elaine, I guess, but he could have told the whole town. Or, even better, knowing that Elaine was going to help him with the blood situation, he could have easily sat down with Elaine and been like, okay, if you're willing to help me with this, you're going to have to do a few things on my end so that we can make this legal. You're going to have to take some classes, get certified, but once you get through those hurdles, you will be able to do the blood work. But that's not the case, and now it looks like they're in huge trouble. Which is unfortunate. And I'm not surprised Glendon blackmailed them whatsoever. Meanwhile, another shocking twist. Not Dr. Best gets to encounter Glendon. Who does Louisa get to encounter? She gets to encounter Martin's ex-girlfriend, Dr. Montgomery, who just randomly shows up at the Salty Breeze. Louisa's in just as much shock as everybody else, I think. And basically Louisa's in shock and is like, oh, what are you doing here? And Dr. Montgomery just cuts to the chase. She seems like the type of person that just spills it. She's like, well, I'm here to see Martin. We're going to get back together. And Louisa's like, well, does he even know you're here? And she's like, oh, doesn't need to. He clearly made it obvious that he wants to get back together with me, considering he sent you as a reference to me. It shows that he really wants to make things serious again. And Louisa's like, well, you're very persistent and observant, aren't you? Louisa's like, I don't think she knows what she's talking about, pretty much, And so, immediately Louisa's like, well, are you here to talk to me? And, she's like, well, you were on one of my callbacks, and that it does look like that she is able to have a child, but the window is closing, so therefore she needs to have a child right away. And the fact that you would be talking medical private in the middle of the Salty Breeze is beyond me, because this is Port Wynne, a nosy town. Everybody hears what everybody says. And I guess it's on Louisa in a way. She could have been like, can we go talk in private? Because the fact that Clark is sitting there at the table and offers to help Louisa have a baby is just like, they're both in shock and like, that's a very nice offer, but I'm good, Clark. Thank you, but no thank you. And the look on their faces, and I'm like, well, you're having a conversation in the middle of the Salty Breeze. If you didn't want that to be heard out loud, you should have done it in a more secure, private place. And immediately you can tell Louisa is just uncomfortable, and when Greg and George walks in, she's just like, hey, Greg and George, this is my fertility doctor, Dr. Montgomery, that Martin has referred me to, and it happens to be Martin's ex. They're looking to get back together, and she wants to stay here. And, Greg and George is like, well, she seems nice and welcome, and the fact that the fact that George at the end tells Louisa to call him, because, that was a lot to take in. And Louisa's just like, in a frantic, she's like, I can't believe I just had this conversation in the Salty Breeze, pretty much. You also have in the doctor's office Martin just upset, beating himself up. He tells Elaine that he can't believe that he basically is like the people of Port Wynn, breaking rules, cutting corners, that he knew good and well that Elaine needed to have a certificate or certification to draw blood, that he took it way too far. He was mainly focused of avoiding the blood because she was helping him, and he knows he should have done the right thing, and now he's going to lose his medical license, and he is just beating himself up over it, which I can understand that it's a big threat that you may be losing your medical license once again because of a mistake that could have been avoided. And immediately Elaine's like, wait, are we going to jail, Doc? Are we? And he doesn't answer her. She's like, are we going to jail? So time will tell about this is huge, that this is a big bad situation going on. To the jail, and the teens are having a blast in the jail cell. Doesn't seem like they really learned anything. I mean, you have Liam with a cell phone taking selfies, and you have the Sheriff Mark egging them on pretty much, telling them, it didn't seem like it was a punishment to teach them a lesson, pretty much. And you have Louisa goes in to bail them out, and that was a whole thing too. You would think that she would scold them, but she didn't. And they even take a selfie with the teenagers with them in the jail cell. And at the end, even the teenagers say that, let's go protest something else. So clearly they thought that was just fun and games. They didn't really learn anything. If that was supposed to be a learning purpose, they didn't do a good job, pretty much. I don't think that's what it was meant to be. I think it was just supposed to be a little funny ha-ha moment for the show. But those teenagers need to be disciplined because of all the things they've done in this show. I'm not a huge fan of the teenagers, but yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Meanwhile, they also make the comment to, I think it was the girl, Harley, tells Louisa and Mark that they would have, too bad it didn't work out for them. They would have been great parents. Which that is a huge statement because later on we'll talk about that. Back at the Salty Breeze, we have Dr. Bess Martin going to meet Eden. We finally learned that Dr. Montgomery's first name is Eden. And, Eden's like, so, I'm glad you're here. And, Martin's like, I don't have no clue why I'm here. I just came because you called me. And she's very adamant that his intention is to get back together with her, which is not Martin's intention whatsoever. I don't think he has any interest in her. And, he makes the comment that she has always been very persistent in what she does, that things never change. She even brings up if he even has any interest in the school teacher, Louisa, and he says, no, we're not compatible. She said, yeah, I didn't figure, you don't look compatible whatsoever. Which is a total lie. He still has feelings for Louisa. That's complicated. So this Eden getting in the way does not help the situation whatsoever. And, she kind of tells him that she's looked at other people and couldn't find somebody, and she knows he's been out there looking for somebody and he couldn't find nobody. So obviously it's time for them to get back together. And, Martin's like, he finally changes the subject and he's like, well, I have a patient I'm really concerned about. And, she's like, always dedicated to the job. That's one thing I've admired about you. Like, she's buttering him up because he makes the comment, really? Most people find that I'm putting them off by that. And she's like, no, I find it very, very attractive. And I'm like, I just can't with her. Like, she needs to go away. I don't want her in the picture. I want Louisa and Martin to have a cherishable relationship. I want them together. I want them to make up. But it's not looking good right now. And so he immediately brings up Sigrid and the baby and asks her opinion, tells her that the baby was super hairy, like hairier than it should have been. Figured it was something to do with hormonal imbalance, but wasn't too sure. That the mom and the placenta smell like rotten eggs, which is very concerning, and that the baby grunts. and immediately they put two and two together, and it's like, this is not okay. They both could be going into septic shock. Where are they? Turns out they're at the town hall meeting, and they immediately storm to the town hall meeting. So the town hall meeting is going on for the second time. Sigrid is bound and determined that this contract is not going to get broken, that this is going to happen. They're getting the salmon farm whether they like it or not, and she is doing her little speech. But what happens? She begins holding her stomach like she's having stomach pains. Her water she breaks out into song once again, and her water breaks again. And immediately I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Baby number 2 is coming? Like, what? Even Martin is like, what is happening right now? And they both say, it's some type of, it starts with a D, and I can't remember what they said, but it's some condition about twins, and if I can remember, I'll pop it up on the screen what they said it was. So, here we go again. A baby's coming, and deja vu. Everybody is helping again. Aunt Sarah's getting the blankets. Elaine is getting the towels. Mark is in shock, and he's being himself. And Martin snaps him back out of it, and it's like, go get me some scissors. Louisa offers to help him deliver the baby, but immediately Eden's like, nope. Me and him's got it under control. So you can tell that she is bound and determined to get Martin back. You know, even Louisa is a little bit jealous that this woman is having babies, because she's like, she's popping them out like a Pez dispenser, and I may not even be able to have one. And immediately Ludwig is like, you want a baby? Here, hold this one. I gotta be here for my Viking queen. So, a lot happening. And the fact that whenever the water broke, another good comedy wrote out sketch for this is immediately when the water broke, immediately Aunt Sarah says, is there another hairball coming? No, she says, is there another hairball in there? I'm like, this is too funny. I can't. And so they have the baby, and this one looks good, and even Aunt Sarah says, wait, she's a cute one. Like, everybody's shocked that whenever the first one was a hairy Chewbacca looking baby, the other one is normal, a normal healthy female, and it turns out because of this twin condition of having twins. And you know, Sigrid is very upset, wanting to know why there was that nobody ever mentioned that there was a second baby in there. And you know, Martin's like, it's totally normal to not see that happening. And I'm thinking, you're getting mad about that, but he told you to go to the hospital, and he told you to also come see him, and you did neither of those things. If you would have got examined, this wouldn't have been a shock. And another thing is Sheriff Mark being Sheriff Mark, he was like, I was looking forward to call her Chewbacca, because of the second baby. He was hoping it would be another Chewbacca, but it was not. And, you know, she immediately turns, Sigrid immediately turns on Martin when the ambulance comes and tells him that this doesn't change anything, that they are still building the salmon farm whether they like it or not, that no matter how much he helps her, it's not changing a thing. And, you know, Martin's like, I just delivered 2 of your 12 babies, or however many you have, and you can talk to me like that, but you cannot talk to these people like that, meaning the town. He's like, you don't gotta put them through this. They helped you, and the fact you're treating them like this. And, you know, even Aunt Sarah tells her that if she wasn't in that gurney, she would punch. She says, if you weren't in that gurney, I would punch you in the face. You know, Aunt Sarah's upset. And Sigrid goes right back at Aunt Sarah and says, and for you, I'm going to be sure that you don't get the house. You get left out on the curb, and that your house gets bulldozed down. And, you know, Ludwig is like, she doesn't mean it. She's delirious. She's delirious. And that's when Martin had enough, and he stood up for the town, which this is a huge, huge, huge accomplishment for Martin. Big step, considering Martin Best of episode 1 up until, I would say, episodes 5, 6, would not have done what Dr. Martin Best did in this final episode. He put his foot down, and he told Ludwig like it was. He told him that he can talk, that it's okay to talk to Martin like that, but to talk to the town like that is a different story. These people helped out them to help them out despite what their beliefs of them, that they falsely had them sign a contract, and that the way they're treating them is not the Portland way. And he says, and as for that, you may think that this contract is legitimate, but wait until I call one of my references, a U.S. senator that owes me everything because I did a triple bypass surgery on him, and he owes me. And I'm sure when he finds out about this bogus contract, he'll have a lot to say. And immediately when Martin puts his foot down and says that to Ludwig gets a little bit scared, I think, and says, "You win. The contract's no more," and Geneva's able to rip it up. Well, it makes the town happy, and they can't believe what Martin said, because even Aunt Sarah's like, what happened to being just medicine? And Martin said, "This isn't medicine, this is Port Win." Which I thought was a huge, huge step once again, because Dr. Martin Best of Season 1, Episode 1 would have not done what Martin Best did in Episode 13. That would have not have went that way whatsoever. And the fact that Glendon is upset with Martin and says, "You will pay for this, Leora, you will pay," is a little bit scary based on the threat that he gave him in the doctor's office. But everybody is happy, and Eden is like, "So what was that all about?" And Martin, being Martin's like, "Well, just like every other thing in this town, it's hard to explain. It doesn't make sense." So, I think Dr. Best has finally found his place in the town, and he enjoys being a member of Port Win now. So immediately Eden talks to Martin and wants to pick up where they left off, wants to have a meeting, and Martin's like, "Yes, sure, fine." He doesn't seem too keen about it, but it doesn't look like he's going to get rid of her anytime soon. And Louisa comes running in and hugs him and says that he never ceases to surprise her. She never knows what's coming. That he's incredible. Asks him where the senator came to play all this time. And the fact that Martin says, this shows a huge growing moment for Martin as well. He says, "Oh, considering I just made him up, there's not really a senator." You can see that's another growth, showing that Martin cares about the town. I don't think the Season 1, Episode 1, Martin would have made up a senator, and threatened them like he did. So, Louisa still has feelings. They both still have feelings for one another, and Eden even sees them hugging, and I think she can tell that they have a connection. So I'm like, okay, good. Martin, please confess to Louisa how you feel and apologize to her, or vice versa, so that this Eden can go away, but didn't happen whatsoever. We have Aunt Sarah in the bait shop, trying to sell her lobsters. And when she asks them how many lobsters they want, she opens the lobster cooler, picks up the lobsters, looks at them, and then immediately closes it and says, "I gotta go back to the boat. Can you watch these for me?" And I'm like, thinking, what on earth is going on? Is there something wrong? Like, what did she find? And I was really concerned about that. You also have a big thing where when Al is outside putting the letters on the sign for the big event, Bert confronts Al, and Al is very upset with him because he did not share with him that he is not his actual father. And it, is understandable, but Bert has a point. How do you bring that up to a kid? It's a very hard topic to talk about. And, Al's like, well, you were the adult. You're supposed to figure that out yourself. And, Bert's like, point taken. But, Bert loves Al and doesn't want anything to happen to him. He has always supported him. And, it's just hard for Al to wrap his head around things because he's found out that he's had another dad all these years that he didn't know about. And when he asks Bert who his real father is, Bert's like, I'm your real father. And I was like, you know what I mean. And unfortunately, it sounds like Al's mother did not tell Bert, if Bert is telling the truth, who his real father is, and that he doesn't know. So, this is a lot for Al to take in, and it's really hurting Bert as well in their relationship with one another. We immediately go to the surprise party for Aunt Sarah, and Greg and George is playing along, asking Aunt Sarah if she really wanted to play bingo for her birthday party. And they think they've really got her good. But they walk in, and they realize that Aunt Sarah's dressed up more than usual, and think that they've blown the cover, and that they are not surprising her. In which, tables turn, because it was never a surprise party for Aunt Sarah all this time. It was a surprise party for Greg and George. And that was a whole thing. Everybody was telling them that how could they have a secret wedding without them, that's not how it works in Port Wynne. And so they threw a surprise party, and Martin is walking brisket, which is so funny, the history behind the pig and the whole season. And it was just a party for the town to come together, pretty much. At the dancing part of the party, Al was talking to Elaine, telling her that they could have a day together when she goes to Juilliard to audition. Why don't he tag along with her so they can scope out New York and just make a day of it? And Elaine it hurts Elaine, and she just breaks and's like, I have a confession. So she interrupts the whole entire party, and she announces on the microphone that she did not get into Juilliard. They never was going to give her a call back. She's had the email for a week. She's been lying to everybody because she felt bad that everybody thought that she was capable of doing things that she is clearly not capable of. And, she really feels like that people are going to be disappointed in her because she did not fulfill what their expectations were. In her mind, she thinks that they think that that's the only thing that she's good at, and that if she doesn't make it successful, then nobody's going to like her, and she even believes that about Al. And, Al is upset with her because, once again, what did he say about lying? He doesn't like when people lie to him. He'd rather hear the truth. And so, finally, he just breaks loose, and he confesses to Elaine that he loves her for who she is, that he knows that she's not perfect, and the fact that he brought up that she almost burnt the doctor's office 2 times making burnt toast, and Martin's response, she did, is funny. It added to the humor of the moment. But Al basically confessed how much she loved her and really made a serious commitment to their relationship, I think. Aunt Sarah later is talking to Martin, because Martin is saying how she looks like she's gleaming eye to eye. She looks very happy, and Aunt Sarah is like, yes, I am happy. We beat the Norwegians. Everybody's happy again. I'm not losing the house. I have the house for now. Everything can turn in a dime, Marty. Everything can turn in a dime. And I was like, what does she mean by that? And even Martin's like, wait, everything is okay? And we later learn when she goes to have a conversation with Bert, because Bert has his own financial problems, with Al wanting to go to school, and upset with him for not telling him the truth about being his father, not being his father. And in this whole season, we've seen that Bert will do anything to make some extra cash. That is shown when they tried to tell them that if they did the salmon farm, that everybody would be given a dividend check. Everybody would be getting rich and benefiting off of this, and Bert was the only one that wanted to consider it when he heard money was involved. Aunt Sarah tells him that there is nothing to worry about anymore. They're all going to be rich, because when she was fishing, she saw lines and lines of sea urchins. And that, just you wait, our luck is going to change. Which, that's huge. If they can make money off of these sea urchins, they can get the school back in order. Aunt Sarah can buy her house from Robert. Everybody could fix the problems that they're having. And then we see that Peter is, the relationship between Peter and Martin has grown throughout this fatherly bond. Last week Peter called Martin his father, said he looked up to him. So the fact that he brings him a piece of cake and you have Copernicus sitting by Martin as he's sitting alone at this table really shows in this final episode that Martin has grown as a character. He has found his people, pretty much. And Martin just is looking at Louisa. He keeps looking at Louisa. I think he wants to go talk to her. And you have Peter eating his cake, looking at Martin. You have Copernicus sitting beside him, and he just gets up. And I just think it's so funny that Peter grabs his piece of cake without saying a word as he goes to walk to Louisa. And I was like, good. He's going to go talk to Louisa and going to confess his feelings to her. It's about time. Let's get this Eden out of the picture. We don't need her ruining this for him. And things just don't go exactly how I wanted it to go. You have Louisa and Sheriff Mark in the kitchen talking. And it turns out Sheriff Mark has offered Louisa to have a baby with him, and that they didn't have to be together, but they could raise the baby together because they're close. And I think Louisa was shocked by that offer, which I would be too. I did not see that coming from Sheriff Mark, considering they broke off their engagement and everything. And unfortunately, Dr. Best Martin heard that conversation and does not go talk to Louisa. And I'm like, no! This is not how I wanted this to end. And to make things worse, Geneva stops Martin and tells him that she got an email and that she felt that she was sorry under the circumstances of what all went on today, but she felt that she needed to notify him that he is being investigated by the medical board because of something about Elaine doing the blood without a certificate unlawfully, and that Martin is being looked into. And Martin storms out, and the last thing we see is a knock on the door, and Eden comes in, and she says, I knew you would call me back. And, Martin's like, just come in. And Eden's like, I knew you would come back, you would want me to come back. And we cut to Copernicus growling at Eden, which I 100% agree with. I do not like Eden as much as I don't like Glendon. Glendon and Eden right now are right up there as my two least favorite people. And that's the end of Season 1, Episode 13, the finale episode. And that's where we end off. Martin didn't get to talk to Louisa. Mark wants to help Louisa, and Eden is inching her way back into Martin's life. So yeah, a lot happened in this episode. I really enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy that the town got rid of the contract. They do not need to worry about these Norwegians taking over. I'm happy that Al finally really showed Elaine how much he cared for her. I'm happy that Aunt Sarah's luck may have turned finding these sea urchins, and maybe Bert and everyone else can benefit with this by making money to save the school and everything that needs to be saved. Just overall being able to see all the characters come together at the end was fantastic. And I have some concerns leading into Season 2. So let's talk about my predictions for Season 2. Unfortunately, when I did my mid-season recap, I talked about how I didn't think Louisa and Martin's relationship would grow any faster than it did. I said that it would probably be on the sidelines. And I talked about last week how I felt like that we wasn't going to see them make up and get back together anytime soon. And it's looking that way even more. I unfortunately think that this Eden Montgomery is going to be in the picture maybe the whole entire Season 2, maybe halfway in Season 2, and she is going to manipulate Martin into being with her rather than sharing his feelings and growing a relationship with Louisa. Do I think that Sheriff Mark and Louisa will end up having a baby together? I don't know. Part of me says yes, And part of me says no. I feel like it's going to be the teeter-totter effect, like it's been in season 1 of their marriage being broken off. They've just now gotten to a good place where they can confidently talk to each other as friends once again, not be in that awkward situation. So I'm not too sure about this whole baby thing. I'm pondering on that one. I think that Elaine and Al's relationship will grow. I don't know if Al will end up going to school or not now that Elaine has not been accepted, but he could still possibly go. I think that Elaine will support him in whatever he does. I feel like for Elaine, in terms of her future, now that she's not going to New York to Juilliard, I think that she will end up getting certified for doing the things that are appropriately done to become the assistant to Martin, Dr. Best, for the blood thing. And that she will do the appropriate measures that need to be done, and he will not get into as much trouble with the board as he would if things wasn't properly done on his end. I think that we are not done with Glendon. I think this is the beginning of Glendon. Glendon will continue to be the antagonist of this series, and will find more ways to make Martin's life miserable, and will continue to try to wreak havoc with the town, finding business opportunities for the town, which will not ever go the way he wants. I think he will always be an antagonist of the show, unfortunately. As for Aunt Sarah, I think she will end up getting the house back. She will buy it off of Robert because of the sea urchin discovery. I think her and Bert will become business partners and will start harvesting these sea urchins and gradually get the town out of the debt that they are in for many reasons, with her house situation, Bert's financial situation. I think that with these sea urchins, they will get the school back. I'll be able to fix that situation. I think Louisa will end up being the school principal permanently. I think, let's see. I'm looking forward to see more of Greg and George. I think we'll see a lot more of them next season, hopefully. And I think that's all. Oh, I think that in season 2, in regards to Dr. Bess Martin, not only do I think that Eden will be in his life longer than we want her to be, or I want her to be, I think we will get to learn more about his blood phobia through Eden. Because I feel like maybe he had it when he was with her because of the whole Rosemary situation, the death of his sister. I think we'll learn more about the Rosemary. And my fingers are crossed, not because I'm a Clunatic, but yeah, I am a Martin Clunes fan. So anytime I can see Martin Clunes on screen, I'm all for it. But I am predicting that we will have another visit from Dr. Bess, Martin's parents. Robert and Vanessa will be back in the picture at least one episode of season 2. Maybe 2, maybe 3. If we could have a bunch of episodes with Robert and Vanessa in them, I would be happy. But I think that we're not done with the parents. They're going to come back and we're going to learn more about this whole family feud thing. And it might be that they come back to town because Aunt Sarah is able to buy the house off of Robert. That could be the thing. And then more things are unraveled. Time will tell. But yeah, those are my predictions for season 2. And overall, like I said, I enjoyed this episode. I'm so happy we're going to have a season 2. They have told us that there are going to definitely be 12 episodes of season 2. One less than this season. And I don't know if 12 is like what has been allotted right now, and there'll be more added as the season progresses, or if it is a season 2, 12 episodes is all you're getting kind of thing. I haven't really read much into that, but yeah, those are my thoughts about season 1, episode 13 of Best Medicine. Like I said, I'm super sad that this is over, and we have to wait to see what happens, in my opinion, they could have not have done a better job ending this season. They ended it perfectly. There was not a cliffhanger. Yes, I want to know what Martin tells Eden. That's going to bug me. I was really hoping he would confess his love to Louisa, and that was how it was going to end. But at the same time, it's not something that, like, if it would have ended last week with the cliffhanger of they could be losing the town or they're not going to lose the town, I would have been super upset, because that is a huge thing to be waiting for. But I think, and like I said, that this is the perfect way to end the first season. And on a positive note-ish, I mean, we know they got the town back. We know that they could be making money now because of the sea urchins. It's just the whole Martin's romance future. Will him and Louisa get back together? Will Mark interfere because he's going to have a child with her? Will Eden weasel her way back into Martin's life to be his girlfriend? All those are my questions, and we'll have to wait and see for season 2. But yeah, that's the end of my video for now. Like I said, this is my final episode for my series, considering this is the final episode of season 1. If you would like to see bonus episodes, I don't really know what I would talk about. If we would dive into the characters or what that might be. But if you're wanting to see bonus episodes, maybe in the future, please leave a comment down below. Maybe give me, if you'd like, give me some ideas of what we could talk about. Or I may be signing off until next season. Time will tell. But I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you stuck around to this far in the video, please remember to give it a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And turn that notification bell on if you want to be notified each and every time I upload a video like this. I'm filming this on Wednesday, so it should be up on Thursday, if not on Friday. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed this video. This is bye for now, but if I don't see you before season 2, don't worry. I'm coming back. We will have a revival series on this channel when the next season comes out. But yeah, this is me signing off for now, and this is where, if you are a Doc Martin fan like myself, you'll want to continue watching this video, because we're going to dive into parallels of both worlds as a Best Medicine fan and a Doc Martin fan. If you've not seen Doc Martin and you don't want to hear any spoilers, I would recommend clicking off of this video now, because we're getting ready to dive into that. But like I said, if you're a Doc Martin fan like myself and you're curious what my thoughts are in parallels to this last and final episode, come on, let's talk about it. So, season 1, episode 13, in the books, the finale. Can't believe it. Where has the season gone? And I mean, I guess I can't really complain, because we got more episodes than we did in Doc Martin in the long run. I think the longest series in Doc Martin had 9 episodes in it, or 10, can't remember. So basically, we are basically, if we were in Doc Martin, watching Doc Martin, we would be in series 2 right now. And I think we might be close to getting into series 3, like we would be getting into the next series. I would have to do the math. But there was a lot of things here and there that were mentioned that we can relate it to Doc Martin. And so let's talk about that. First of all, the big thing in this episode was delivering the baby. Martin Best had to deliver not 1 but 2 babies. That is very similar to Doc Martin. In Doc Martin, you know, Dr. Elliam delivered a baby in the surf shop on series 9 or 10. It was one of the later series. And even when Louisa was having her baby, James Henry, in the pub, I don't think Martin really was there. Like, he didn't help physically deliver the baby, but he later came in with her. He was not going to go in there with her at first. He wanted to stay outside, but because she didn't want him there. And then finally he came running in, and, you know, it showed that he really did care for her. But as far as I can recall, the only baby I remember him delivering was no, I think he even had to deliver the baby on their wedding day, their first wedding day, when her friend was pregnant. He ended up delivering her baby too, now that I think about it, in earlier series. So there was a lot of baby delivering in Doc Martin. Also, the school, getting into the schools, you had Al applying to colleges. It just all goes back to the whole Al and Pauline thing. In series 1 of Doc Martin, Al wanted to go to tech school to do things with computers, and Bert was not too thrilled about that because he didn't know how to deal with that financially, and he thought that Al's place was to help him in the plumbing business, and that was a whole thing. Whereas in this similar situation, Bert's out upset with Al because Al didn't tell him that he applied to colleges and got into them. And that whole thing ties into Al and Elaine's relationship in Best Medicine. Al didn't tell Elaine about getting accepted to these schools, and Elaine didn't tell him that she didn't get accepted to Juilliard. She didn't get the call back, and that's similar to the Al and Pauline relationship in Doc Martin, where Pauline asks Al to submit her college application, and Al doesn't do it and doesn't tell Pauline about it until the Christmas episode of series 2. And that kind of damages the relationship a little bit. Pauline becomes upset with Al. So some similarities there. The whole Al and Bert's son and father thing in Best Medicine goes back to the whole Doc Martin thing. And Doc Martin, the whole thing that brings it up is Pauline tells Al about the eye color not matching Bert. Has he ever considered that Bert may not be his father? And Al confronts Bert about that. And then, it kind of gets dropped in Doc Martin that Al just accepts Bert as his father and loves him for taking care of him. Whereas in Best Medicine, we dive deeper. Al finds out that Bert is not his father through the DNA test he took back in the episode 8, the Bogman episode, trying to figure out if they were relatives to the Bogman, and finds out that Bert is not his father, his real father. Doesn't confront him about it until this episode, and Bert's hurt, and he basically tells Al that he doesn't really know anything about his father, if he's telling the truth. He doesn't know anything about his real father, that his mother never told him anything. So that's a lot to take in for Al, and Al's still hurt and conflicted about that. We have the whole investigation thing that Glendon has brought up about Martin in Best Medicine, Dr. Best, and Elaine taking blood without a certification. And this has become a huge deal and going to be leading up into season 2 of his whole investigation of potentially losing his medical license. And this has happened several occasions in Doc Martin itself. Dr. Elliam has been investigated several times. In that Christmas special of Series 2, you have the guy investigating about complaints about him having terrible bedside manner. And he kind of blows him off and tells him he does what he does, he's good at his job, and slams the door in the guy's face. And then later in Series 9, going into Series 10, we have the whole big investigation in Series 8 where the woman sues him for passing out on her and causing her to bleed because of the procedure, and he ends up having to jump through these hurdles to get the board to sign off on him to be able to practice medicine unsupervised. And then the whole thing, the final episode of Series 9, where the guy had froze up and is not really supposed to be practicing surgery anymore, and he basically does the same thing Glendon does to Martin Best in Best Medicine, tells Martin that Elliam, if he overlooks his medical condition of not being able to practice surgery anymore, then he'll overlook all the things that Martin has done that could potentially cause him to lose his medical license. And in Doc Martin Elliam does not do that, and he ends up sending out his resignation of being the town's doctor. In Best Medicine, Dr. Best just finds out the news that he's going to be investigated. So we don't really know how this is going to turn out, which way. That is what we're going to be leading up to. And then last but not least, the whole X coming to town. In Doc Martin, we had a whole series dedicated to Edith Montgomery, Martin's ex, trying to basically get back in the picture with him and conflicting his relationship with Louisa. His love but not love interest of Louisa. And in Best Medicine, it looked like the same thing's going to happen. We learned that her name in Best Medicine is Eden Montgomery instead of Edith. Very similar. And that she is very, very, very persistent and believes that Dr. Best referred Louisa to her because he has a love interest in her and wants to get back together with her. Which is not the case, I don't think. But sadly, we see at the end of this episode that he basically invites Eden into his home. She says, I knew you would call me back. You'd want me to come back. And that's where we leave off with that. So, my prediction in the other half of the video is that we are not going to get rid of Eden anytime soon. She will be a part of Season 2. Maybe not the whole entire season, but maybe half of it. And we'll have to deal with her. Wreaking havoc in Martin's life as he tries to decide whether he wants to share his love for Louisa, which is totally like in Doc Martin. We had the on and off thing between Martin Elliam and Louisa. Talking to each other, not talking to each other. Going to get married, don't get married, kind of thing. So it's understandable that they would do that in this episode, or in this series as well of Best Medicine. But yeah, those are the parallels that I found of Best Medicine and Doc Martin. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I feel like they ended it perfectly, not too big of a cliffhanger, not something that would make you get all upset. I'm happy that there's going to be a Season 2, definitely. And yeah, that is going to be the end of my video. Like I said, if you want to see me make bonus videos, I'd be glad to. Not really sure what we'd talk about. If not, I will not see you guys until my series will come out when Season 2 premieres. We don't know when that's going to be yet. Coming soon is all we know. We don't know if it's going to be the fall of this year or if it's going to be winter time of next year like this season was. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed making these videos, and like I said at the beginning of the video, thank you guys so much for watching these and interacting each and every week. I love making these videos so much and love sharing my thoughts of the show because I love both of these shows. I can relate to Best Medicine so much, and Doc Martin was a show that really made me laugh, and I can't say that much about TV programs much anymore. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not already. Turn that notification bell on so you can get notified every time I upload. I'm going to get this edited right away, and hopefully we'll have it uploaded for you guys on Thursday. Hope everybody has a fantastic rest of the year, week, month, if I don't see you, and I can't wait to see you for Season 2, which is coming soon, I hope. Take care.